Welcome back. Tulsa Burning, the 1921 Race Massacre, is honoring and commemorating the 100th anniversary of this horrific event in U.S. history. I spoke with director Stanley Nelson all about his film, Tulsa Burning, which is premiering on the History Channel this Sunday, May 30th. Let's take a look.
The History Channel's new documentary, Tulsa Burning, the 1921 Race Massacre, directed by Peabody and Emmy Award-winning documentarian Stanley Nelson, commemorates the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, one of the worst acts of racial violence in U.S. history. Stanley Nelson is here with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on.
This is a story that needs to be retold again and again. It's a hard one to hear, and I'm curious, what made you decide to focus on this chapter in history in particular?
Well, I mean, I think, one, it was the largest example of racial violence in the history of the United States, that's really important. It's the 100th anniversary coming up, this week. So that's also important. But I think also, one of the most amazing things as a filmmaker is that there's incredible footage and incredible pictures of the building of the Greenwood neighborhood. Someone, African American with a camera, in 1920 filmed the life of Greenwood. So we see the businesses, we see people sitting on their porch, we see still pictures of the movie theater and the skating rink, and so that, for a filmmaker, that's like gold. That not only do you have people telling the story, but you can see it. You can really see it and feel it. Plus, there's still pictures and footage of the destruction, of the massacre, of the mobs, of the destruction, of the flattening of Greenwood. So it's a story that we could tell, and it's an important American story. That Greenwood represents so many other communities that were destroyed or devastated by racism in this country.
The footage that you mentioned, the videos that are shown throughout the movie, the photography is just stunning. How hard was it to go through all of that footage and to be able to, decide what to include, what not to include, and to piece it together with everything else that you have in this film, with the interviews and the more current footage of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's gold. I mean, so that it's not in any way really hard, because it's like you're filtering through gold coins. Like, wait, which gold do I want? Because you can really see it. So it's so many times, when you're doing stories of African American history, there aren't pictures. There's not footage, and so to have too many pictures and too much footage, is a dream come true.
And as you worked on this film, it's a really hard thing to focus on, I imagine, at times. I mean, this was a massacre. There were concentration camps. Were there any times where it just felt very, very challenging while telling the story?
In some ways, but also, as a filmmaker, I'm really honored to tell this story, right? And more, I feel the burden of ancestors, like sitting on my shoulder and saying, Stanley, just don't mess this up. This is your one chance to tell this story. Don't mess it up. So that it's more of that burden that I feel than anything else.
And how long have you been wanting to focus on this particular chapter in our history?
I've been wanting to make this film for a few years. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I made a film called Boss, about Black entrepreneurship, the history of Black entrepreneurship, and we had like a 7-minute section on Greenwood, the Greenwood community, and ever since then, I mean, I knew that it was a much bigger story, and I really wanted to tell it. We were very fortunate, to be able to tell it this year, because we have the story of 1921, but also the story of 2021, and the search for remains of people that were buried in a mass grave. And we went into the film not knowing what we would find and what they would find, if anything. But uh, yeah, I don't want to give it away, but I think that everybody would be surprised at what they and moved by what they found.
Stanley, you're today's leading documentarian of the African American experience. You mentioned some of your other projects. I know back in 2019 we had some of the Miles Davis family here in studio and interviewed them about your film, Miles Davis, Birth of the Cool. What else are you working on? Can you tell us? And how does this film in particular kind of relate to some of your other projects that you mentioned?
I think I've done a number of films on African American history. I'm working on a film on Frederick Douglass, kind of the first part of Frederick Douglass's life, a film on Harriet Tubman, and a major film on Attica. But I think that that this film is getting the bulk of my attention because it's done, and we just are so happy and honored to kind of be able to launch it, on the world, because I think that so many people will be moved and in some ways stunned by the stories that we tell in Tulsa Burning.
And on this 100th anniversary, I know people will be absolutely moved and stunned. What else do you hope they will take away after seeing this?
It's great that you say that because that's the main thing. I mean, I want people to be moved, and by this film, and I think that the rest, is history, as they say. What people do with being moved is up to them. But I hope that people will understand more of our country's history, more about the struggles that African Americans have gone through in this country, and be moved by that.
Well, Stanley Nelson, thank you so much for joining us today on Park City Television. Tulsa Burning, the 1921 Race Massacre, premieres Sunday, May 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the History Channel. It's such a joy talking with you, and I appreciate your time with us here on Park City Television.
Thank you so much.